The NCAA tournament is fast approaching, and there are teams that are on the bubble. Now, this is Joe Lunardi's Bracketology. Now, according to Lunardi, the last four byes are Louisville, VCU, Boise State, and Seton Hall. His last four in are Indiana, UConn, Xavier, and Colorado State. His first four out are Minnesota, Stanford, Richmond, and Michigan State. His next four out are Duke, Georgia Tech, Ole Miss, and Utah State. Now, this is as of Friday the 26th. So, if the tournament were to have the team selected tonight, would the right teams get into the tournament? Well, I'm here to break that down. So this is just kind of an update on the bubble teams. So let's start with Lunardi's last four byes. And that is Louisville, VCU, Boise State, and Seton Hall. Now Louisville has wins over Seton Hall, 2 wins against Duke, Virginia Tech, but a loss to Miami. And other than that, the teams that Louisville has lost to, they are not bad teams at all. I believe every other team that Louisville's lost to, other than Miami, they're safely in the tournament field. VCU has a win over Utah State, but a loss to Penn State. A pretty bad loss to Penn State and a bad loss to West Virginia. I know West Virginia is in the tournament field safely right now, but it was a 22-point loss. And the fact it wasn't competitive, I think that makes me a little bit skeptical about VCU. Next, we have Boise State. Boise State has wins over Utah State, 2 of them, and a win to Colorado State, but also a loss to Colorado State. Seton Hall has a win over Xavier, a win over UConn, and a loss to Louisville. So, out of those last four byes, definitely staying in the last four byes are Louisville and Boise State. For VCU, I'm still skeptical about their resume. And for Seton Hall, I feel like they're part of that last four in. Now, to the last four in, Indiana has wins over Stanford, Maryland, and 2 wins against Iowa, but also a loss to Northwestern. And also a loss to Michigan State. UConn has a win over USC, a loss to Seton Hall, and a win over Xavier. And Xavier has wins over Toledo, Oklahoma, and Creighton, who are teams that are safely in the tournament field right now, but they have also lost again to Creighton, Seton Hall, and UConn. So, getting to Colorado State now, a win over Boise State, Utah State, and San Diego State, which are good. But the problem is they also lost to all 3 of those teams. So depending on how the tournament committee could look at it, you could look at it as they beat these 3 teams one time, but they also lost to them on the other hand. So could those wins and losses, could they cancel each other out? That is the one thing that I'm wondering. And moving in from the last 4 into my last 4 byes are Indiana and Xavier. And moving back to my last 4 in are Seton Hall. And staying in my last 4 in is UConn. So there's still 2 more spots for that last 4 in. So let's get to the first 4 out. Minnesota has wins over Iowa, Michigan State, Ohio State, and Michigan. The only team to beat the Wolverines so far this season. But they also have bad losses to Northwestern and Nebraska. Stanford, they have wins over Alabama and UCLA, but they do have a loss to Indiana and North Carolina. Richmond, they have a win over Loyola Chicago and a loss to VCU. Michigan State, they have wins over Duke, Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio State, but they have losses to Minnesota and Northwestern. So when I look at that first four out, I think Minnesota, they have the resume to get into my last four in. And the reason why, I think that Michigan victory is a huge selling point for Minnesota's case to get into this field. Because so far, they are the only team to beat Michigan this season. And they beat them pretty convincingly. And Michigan State, well, they have been pretty inconsistent at times. But with what they've done in this past week, by beating Illinois and beating Ohio State, pulling off two upsets in a matter of 3 days, I think that is able to bring Michigan State into that last four in. So moving from my first four out to my last four in are Minnesota and Michigan State. And Stanford stays my first four out. VCU moves into my first four out. And Richmond moves into my next four out. So getting into that next four out, Duke has wins over Georgia Tech, Clemson, Virginia, who are all safely in the field right now. But lost to Miami, Pittsburgh, and Notre Dame. So Duke stays in my next four out because they have 3 bad losses to the bottom of the ACC conference. Georgia Tech, they have wins over North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson, and Virginia Tech, but a loss to Duke. But Georgia Tech, in my mind, they have more impressive wins than Duke. So Georgia Tech moves from my next four out to my first four out. And for Georgia Tech, maybe all it will take for them to get into the tournament is to win maybe 1 or 2 games in the ACC tournament. And VCU is in my first four out. I feel like all that VCU has is a win over Utah State. Other than that, I just can't really find anything impressive about their resume. I feel like VCU, they have to win their conference tournament or else they won't get in. Ole Miss, they have wins over Missouri, 2 of them, and a win against Tennessee, but bad losses to Vanderbilt and Mississippi State. Ole Miss stays my next four out. And finally, Utah State, they have 2 wins over San Diego State, a win over Colorado State, but they have 2 losses to Boise State, a loss against Colorado State, and a loss to VCU. So, Utah State stays in my next four out. And Colorado State, they're in my first four out. So for review, my last 4 byes belong to Louisville, Boise State, Indiana, and Xavier. My last 4 in are Seton Hall, UConn, Minnesota, and Michigan State. My first 4 out are Stanford, Colorado State, VCU, and Georgia Tech. And my next 4 out are Duke, Richmond, Ole Miss, and Utah State. So this is just kind of an update on where these bubble teams stand. There's a lot that can happen from now until Selection Sunday, because one of these teams, they can easily win their conference tournament and get an automatic qualifier. So these final games coming up and the conference tournaments are huge for all these teams to build their case to why they belong in the field of 68. So that's just my update on the Bubble Watch at this point. Like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time.